Good night and welcome to Mindful Life 120. I'm your host, Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. Tonight we're talking blackout. I'm not sure all who got back their electricity already, but there was a blackout rolling across certain parts of the country. And the blackout was caused... Last time there was a blackout in Trinidad, not that long ago. Last time the blackout was caused because a tree. A tree came falling down on a line out, I believe it was the Gandhi Union line back then. And now this time it's actually the same line around the same place, but it's not a tree this time. This time it was actually a landslide. At least that's the story that is already out there. 30% of TNT without power, landslide fells tower. And I don't know how many of you may have seen some of the memes already where you have a picture already of the tower, the leaning, it's a high tension wire tower, and landslide pushed it and it's crooked now. How electricity all they still have? Had electricity all they still have? If you ain't get back your power, drop your location, please. Hey, Trinidad is not a real place. I don't know, man. I don't know. In the place of the imaginary, we have lost power. Parts of Trinidad are without electricity supply tonight. The Trinidad and Tobago Electricity Commission has confirmed that 30% of the country has been affected. I don't know if by now it's had been affected, because it seems like quite a few places who lost power got it back. The Express was told that the commission is investigating an issue with one of the towers that supply the Union Gandhi line. When I heard that Union Gandhi line business, I was like, that thing sounds familiar. This whole Union Gandhi business is kind of sounding familiar. It's ringing a bell in my head. So I went to look back up what that was the last time we lost power, back in February. Uneasy blackout across TNT leaves tens of thousands without electricity, water. An unexplained national power outage yesterday left tens of thousands of people without electricity up to last night and crippled businesses. According to TNTech, a fault occurred on two major circuits in the Rosalac area yesterday. Speaking to the Express, TNT general manager back then said the outage like this had not occurred in the country for many years. This is the first time that everyone has been fully affected like this. What happened yesterday, this was him speaking back then, a fault developed on our system on two of our major circuits, the Union Gandhi line in the Rosalac area. So, the Union Gandhi line seems to need a bush bath. Right now, if you're in that Rosalac area, somebody say Rowley cut it because of the memes. I doubt it. But if you're in that area and you know how to throw some bush and what the bush bath involves, no. And on that note, let's not go next to high tension wires that have a propensity to glitch. Probably stay away from that wire. That wire might have some kind of final destination business going on with it. So maybe if Trinidad is not a real place, as Leanne Allen is saying, then Rosalac may be the central area of the not a realness, because something is going on with that line constantly. Something strange is going on. A statement by the commission. Now, this is talking about the current blackout that we are facing. It seems like the blackout isn't really affecting TikTok because you all are well here. So, by the way, if you're inside of the live, hit that like button if you're over on TikTok, hit that like button if you're over on Instagram and you feel so inclined, or you can also share the live if you feel so inclined to, and allow more people to join and jump in the live and discuss, and we'll talk about all the good stuff. Also, you could head over to my YouTube channel, Nathan Springer, over on YouTube, if you'd like to follow me there and keep up with all the other lives. Over there, you have the ability to see these stories as I'm reading them and see exactly what I'm talking about, and that I'm not just pulling all of this just out of thin air. This whole thing is about the 4%. Good night, folks. I see we all have electricity. Well, I do. Water too. Leanne Allen, to be very honest with you, So I was in the East. Personally, to be very, just let me even pull this back. Let me pull this back a little more. I was in what we call the East. Just by the way, in my humble opinion, I do not consider Tacarigua to be the East. Like, look where I'm pointing in this map. If we split this thing kind of middle, you know, we go down the middle there and split it. North, east, west, south. How is something that is more to the northwest of the country considered east? I just don't understand that. I don't understand that. Travel, we don't do that over here. I don't understand that. I really don't. So, just by the way, I was over there and the current went. And I was coming on my way back to the best place to live in Trinidad and Tobago in Central. And on my way there, I was like, how this thing happen all around the country like that? How this thing happen all around the country like that? So, I was thinking, and the first thing came to my head is, wait, aren't the unions negotiating? That's the thing that came to my head. Rooney moderating the chat with a strong arm there. Yeah, that's the thing that came to my mind. I was like, wait, aren't the unions negotiating right now? Like, nearly all the unions? And it has been known in Trinidad before that around times of serious negotiation that mistakes, glitches seem to happen. However, there is evidence of a bent high tension wire that they say was caused by a landslide. Unless the unions are working with some kind of seismic machine out there, unless the unions have some kind of seismic machine, good night, Richard Gloveman, then I don't think that the union had anything to do with this. How could they trigger a landslide? How would they bend the high tension wire pole? The pole is actually bent. You're seeing the pole bent there. It's right there. It's right there. Come on, we can't blame the union for that one. Like, I mean, if someone said some kind of switch flipped in some area or something sparked off or something, nah. You're trying to tell me that OWTU has access to advanced technology, advanced US military technology. Don't do me that. Do not do us that. No, not OWTU, not NATAP. Those guys aren't using high-tech advanced warfare out here. They are not doing that. We will not condone that kind of accusation. There was a landslide and it bent or tripped or broke the high tension pole. Stop that. I will not have you with the Queen. All right. Rolling load shedding is currently in effect while engineers assess the situation. Customers trying to contact our call center will experience delays in getting through as the call volume is inordinately high, the commission stated. Power outages have been reported in Princestown, Diego Martin, Couva, Freeport, Chaguanas, Separia, Pinal, Malabar, and other areas across the country. The commission stated that the issue was being addressed and supply was expected to be restored soon. So it seems like, for the most part, it seems most people have their supply restored. Ask Roger who he really working for. I don't know. I don't know. Who is he really working for? When was the landslide tonight? I don't know that. I was not down in Rosillac. I am just saying what the Daily Express said, and the Daily Express is saying what they heard from the Trinidad and Tobago Electricity Commission. And I don't know who Roger is really working for. According to who he is supposed to be working for, it would be the workers of the oil workers trade union, the workers that are represented under that umbrella union. So I don't know who else other than that you're talking about. Who else would he be working for? I don't know. Now, last night in the live, we were speaking about crime and we were blaming police. That's a lot what we were blaming the police for a lot of it. And I was reading today, it nearly seems like this article was written just to answer a lot of what we were speaking about last night. I want some of that tea. It is actually coffee. And yes, Richard Gloveman, you would have enjoyed last night. You would have enjoyed the live where quite a few, listen, all the police that are in the live that may be silent usually, they jumped out of the woodwork and they were defending the brothers in blue. The brothers in blue were out there in unity defending themselves against a barrage requesting scrap iron convo. Yes, that is up. We are going to talk scrap iron because I think it's kind of linked to all of this. The crime situation and all of that. This is kind of linked to it too. So yeah, we were talking about crime and I was saying that the fact is the first in line in finger pointing, when the citizens point fingers, the first in line will be the police. And if the police do not want to be blamed, then they need to shape up or ship out and allow that people could see, okay, the police are doing their job, so we can point fingers going further up. Really, ask him when did he find out that Petrotrin was actually closing down. Listen, Nappy here, Barbie. I do not have Mr. Roger's personal phone number. Him and I are not on first name basis. I do not have a WhatsApp chat with him. So I would not be able to ask him those questions. It's not within my ability. My apologies. Hook him up to a polygraph machine. Wow. You're going in deep. You're going in deep on Mr. Roger there. But in the crime area, because Trinidad is seeing a deadly spike in crime within the last couple days, there were like 16 murders in a couple days. It is ridiculous. I think we're currently at 360 something. It's really high. So let's jump over to see what Mr. Jacob had to say about it all. Jacob, no rise in brazen killings, but high-powered guns to blame for criminality. So last night we were talking about who was to blame, and according to Mr. Jacob, well, the blame is actually on the high-powered guns. These high-powered guns have magical abilities, apparently. It was just after midday on July 14th when a water vendor was shot in the head. Wow, that is an attention grabber to start your story with. Was shot in the head on Broadway in Port of Spain, in clear view of many making their way in and around the capital city. 2 weeks later, a man was shot dead and 3 others wounded one afternoon during the month-end rush on the corners of Queen and George Street. One of the victims, a vendor, was shot in the leg and hand and is still hospitalized. More recently, last Saturday, gunmen opened fire on 3 men at a residence nightclub in Woodbrook, a popular weekend party spot. It is just feet away from the police academy. Brazen killings like these have left many in the population feeling unsafe, not only in the capital city, but across Trinidad and Tobago. And they have a few people saying that, listen, we're not feeling very safe out here. They said criminals just don't care about the police witnesses or even potential victims. According to the acting commissioner of police, MacDonald Jacob, combating crime is not only the police's job, but he said they are doing their best. They are doing their best. Jacobs needs a retirement home, Nappy here, Bobby says. Troy Scott says apparently the high-powered guns have legs and arms of their own. It may seem so, sir. It may seem so. He says the police are doing their best. Now, I understand what he's trying to say, but I don't think he is expressing what he might be trying to say. If you are saying the police are doing their best, yet the murder rate is spiking, then you're saying your best isn't good enough, and therefore you are incapable of doing the job. Because if your best isn't good enough, if you're doing your best, the idea of best is it's the superlative. You know, it's not the comparative, it's the superlative. There's nothing better than your best. If you're doing your best, you are mashing the X. You are mashing the X to board. There's no further the X can go. The vehicle is at the limiter speed. The needle is bouncing. There's nothing more you can do. And if you are saying that's what you're doing and the criminals are passing you, whoosh, then you are telling us that this vehicle is incapable of doing the job. Like, I understand he's trying to say that we are trying hard. That's what he's trying to say. We are trying hard. But obviously, if you think that you can actually solve this and do better, then you are not doing your best. That goes without saying. Good night, Easy868. We on the inside. Good night, sir. Good night. Good night. Yeah, obviously you aren't doing your best. Like, come on. That's what I say. That's what I've said before about the current commissioner also, that I find he could do some better communication. Like, that trying your best business. And that's what I was saying about last night with the police, where so often the police seem like they're on the defensive instead of pointing inside of their area to see where is something wrong. Okay, well, we know that there are corrupt forces within the police and we are working to eradicate that to, do better for the country. Fine. If you say that, people aren't going to mind that. But when you're saying you're doing your best and people are saying, well, this obviously isn't good enough, so what are you telling us, really? What are you telling us? Nappy here, Bobby says, the best to serve whom? The persons that mandate. Oh, that's the direction you're going. They need to start arresting those who are communicating fraud. Okay, Nappy here, Bobby. I see. Good night, Nubian Empress. Good night, Stefan John. All right. Jacob said, anytime the main focus is only on what police are doing, the country will lose its battle against the criminals. You see, in the very next line again, it's the same thing I'm talking about. Always on the defensive for the police. Like, okay. First thing you do is own up to the police shortcomings and then point the finger outside. If the first thing you always do is point the finger outside, so it's like, those discussions when people speak, the gender discussions that people have had. I was looking just this week, a guy I know puts out 2 statuses over on Facebook, one criticizing men for promiscuity, and then the second one criticizing women for promiscuity. The one criticizing men for promiscuity, many of the men in the comments were like, yeah, boy, we really need to encourage you fellas to do better. You can't go out there and just be right. When the one for criticizing women for promiscuity, a lot of women in the comments were like, but men, and what about the men? And why you don't tell this to the men? And not knowing literally the status before was that. And that's a problem. That's a problem. If the critique is on you and it's a legitimate critique, pointing at the fact that somebody else might have the same criticism that could be leveled against them, you're trying to gaslight people. You're trying to redirect from the fact of the matter that we're trying to address here. You're the police commissioner. Obviously, when they're talking to the police commissioner, they're going to talk about the shortcomings of the police. Do you expect them to talk to the police commissioner to talk about the shortcomings of someone's home? I mean, you're not the social worker. You're the police commissioner. Obviously, they're talking to you about the shortcomings of the police. Jeez. accountability. Have some. Guns empower criminals. However, the acting commissioner said one of the reasons for the boldness of and descent into criminality could be the psychology of firearm possession. He explained that this is when an individual has a deadly weapon like a submachine gun, AR-15, or an AK-47 in his hands. Jacob said he may be trained to use it, but he's not trained like a law enforcement officer on how to manage it. It takes a young man who might be a child, make him feel like he's a man. They may be of the opinion that they can take on anyone because of that weapon in his hand, Jacob said. He said the type of weapons the criminals have in their possession empowers them, and he blames this on the rapid increase in guns entering this country. When they hold this weapon, they feel now that they are a giant, they are invincible. Our data have shown that a lot of these high-powered weapons, illegal ones, from when we trace it, is coming from North America, he said. Jacob said these areas are Miami, Texas, and Baltimore. He said the TNT Police Service has taken 392 weapons off the streets for the year so far, and 60 were high-powered guns. So, he is saying that the high-powered guns in the hands of these men are poisoning their mind with feelings of great power. And with this feeling of great power, they go out there thinking they're invincible. And in this combination of power and invincibility, crime spikes. Okay. I understand that. I could understand that. And I don't even fully disagree. It coming from Venezuela too. Yes, a criminologist is saying that right after here. That's literally what a criminologist says right after. Criminologist Dr. Melissa Neptune Figaro agreed with the acting police commissioner about the psychology of guns. Guns and firearms have made young people feel like if something happens to me, I can protect myself with a gun. However, Dr. Neptune Figaro believes a lot of the weapons also come from Venezuela. So yes, there's that Venezuela part there too. And true. The guns do give people that feeling of empowerment. But either way, I would think if the guns give them that kind of feeling of invincibility, they're not actually invincible, so that would make it easier for the police to catch them. Don't you think so? If they are getting these high-powered weapons and it's making them more reckless, shouldn't that make it easier for the police to catch them? Who give them the guns? Who give them the drugs to buy the guns? Listen, Nappy here, Barbie, because I'm not sure I read the one before. If the politicians doing fraud openly and left to roam freely and untouched, what is left to those who have no income? I am the guys out there committing these murders and committing these murders because they're struggling to buy food. They're not doing that for that. So I don't see it as these guys are victims of the system or anything like that. These guys are criminals. A lot of the times these guys can afford to buy the guns themselves. Them fellas ain't missing no meals. Them fellas ain't hungry out there. Have you ever seen any of these big boys out there? Cuban links? Like, massive. Come on, these guys aren't struggling to get money. This isn't the 90s. This isn't the 80s when the criminal underworld in Trinidad and Tobago was now burgeoning. This is pretty advanced. Who is enabling them? Now there's a question. I agree. That's a further question right there that is pretty obvious. And I think that question has a really good link over to this scrap iron business, because they're shutting down the scrap iron industry for 6 months because they're saying the scrap iron industry is facilitating crime. The scrap iron industry is facilitating the theft of copper wires. That's the main thing. These copper wires are being stolen by this scrap iron industry. Gopi Schoon, clear need to improve scrap iron law. Given the high levels of criminal activity in the scrap iron industry, Minister of Trade and Industry Paula Gopi Schoon said there was a clear indication of a need for improvement in legislation dealing with scrap iron. She made the statement while responding to questions on Tuesday after a 6-month ban on exporting scrap iron was implemented last week and announced on Monday. Clearly, the situation was out of hand with the looming worsening levels of criminal activity, and therefore it has to be kept in check. I don't disagree, Miss Gopi Schoon. I understand that. Because what was happening is in this scrap iron industry, criminals were going out there and stealing copper wires from all over, from important places, stealing these copper wires and causing essential services to be lapsed and loss in essential services. So important, you need to stop that. And it wasn't the entire scrap iron industry. According to the scrap iron industry chairman, the chairman of the association, the president, I believe he's called, of the association, he said there are limited amount of dealers that actually deal in copper, and it's copper they're getting from these wires just by the way. He has been proposing for over a year now, different proposals to, specifically deal with that copper. He offered them, let's go and ban the copper export for 3 months. No, I wasn't, when I'm saying that, Benji, I wasn't talking about the guys themselves who are doing the shooting. I was speaking about the guys who are bringing in the guns. That's what I was speaking about. No one needs to bring in the guns for them as to sponsor the guns for them. They have money now. They don't need the guns sponsored. They could buy it themselves. They do buy it themselves. They could have the boats themselves to go bring it in themselves. That's kind of what I was more going down the line of. But yes, this scrap iron industry was involved in criminality. But according to the president of the association, he was saying that it's a limited amount of people. He had proposals out there. Let's put a pause on the export of copper because it's copper they're getting from the wire. Let's pause that. And we'll work this out. Send some officers to focus in on the copper industry, and we'll pause that industry and we can see it. Now, they disagreed with that apparently. They didn't go along with that plan apparently. And now they shut down the entire industry because some members of the industry were involved in criminal activity. Now, if they're saying that the guns from the previous article, if the police commissioner is saying that the guns are coming in from Baltimore, coming in from Texas, coming in from wherever was the other places in the United States, that means they would have been coming in on containers, in ships. When they make a bust of a specific industry, which has happened before, and find containers with guns or boxes with guns, how come they don't shut down those industries? When they make a find of tons of coke or many pounds of coke inside, let's say, just theoretically, a container with chicken, how come they don't shut down the chicken industry? To say that the only way you could figure out how to stop this is by shutting down the entire industry does not quite make sense to me. It just doesn't quite make sense to me. Because there are other industries that we know are used to facilitate criminal activity. And I would argue, if I had to make a choice, listen, it's a hard choice, but if I had to make a choice between getting no guns in the country versus losing some copper wires, I would lose some copper wires personally. Personally, I'd lose some copper wires. Because if the copper thieves don't have any guns, it would be even easier to catch them. So if we had to make a decision, allow the copper thieves to continue for a little while and stop the gun imports, which would you choose? They see all scrap iron men as criminals. I know. And here's the problem. as someone commented in a video I did earlier on that, commented and said that all those scrap iron men are criminals. All of them, I forgot the word he used for them. And I was saying, now, even if, let's say all the scrap iron men are criminals, if you throw them out of a job for 6 months, would they magically stop being criminals? Or would they just become more desperate criminals? And if the argument, now here's this, let's think about this. Let's put on our thinking cap, the mindful cap. We have on our thinking mindful cap. If the amount of criminals inside the scrap iron industry are too many for the limited number of police we have, that's the argument they're saying. As it stands right now, the police would be pulled too thin to try to police this scrap iron industry. There are too many criminals there. Now, if all of these criminals are still going to be loose and around Trinidad with the same amount of police, would they stop being criminals, and or would the police multiply in number to somehow be able to stop them now? Or would it be the same problem, that too many criminals for too few police? If these guys decide, okay, we can't steal copper, we're going back to our regularly scheduled program of breaking into people's houses and stealing knickknacks all around, what's going to happen then? Nathan Rosen says the drug gun trade is $1 million industry. To shut it down would make some rich people very poor. True. Napier Barbie says, I would say 99.9% are, but things going to get worse because it's all a plan when they riot martial law. Stefan, bro, crime makes some rich. I know. Of course, crime makes many people rich. Many people get rich off of crime. The reason that's the reason they get into criminality. The vast majority of people that get into criminality don't just do it for the kicks. They do it for the money. They want to get rich. They're not just risking it all for the kicks of it. I don't think this is a good idea, the shutting down of the scrap iron industry. And I think when I look at how they did it, I think it seems in the similar line as I call the People's National Movement an elitist party. It seems kind of elitist. The tone of it where, okay, the guy is sending proposals to you. It's not like it's not like they addressed the man's proposals. It's not like they addressed the man's proposals. They're just like, you know what? Let's shut down the industry for 6 months and we'll see what we could see about this. We'll have our lawyers draw up something to see about this. But the guy was sending out proposals to you for the last year. None of the proposals were attempted to say, okay, we attempted the idea that the man from inside the industry said. We attempted the idea and it failed, so now we have to shut it down. None of that. None of that. Why? I don't understand. Somebody please explain that to me. And how are people to take that as anything but elitist? Listen, I have a very bad feeling that I would not be surprised if when this legislation is written up and we see this legislation released in the next 6 months, there is a lean towards a reorganization at the top of the scrap iron industry. I will not be surprised at all if some of those larger companies in Trinidad, when it reopens, just happen to be at the top of the scrap iron industry. Richard Glubman says because it was a mad proposal. What was mad about the proposal, Richard Glubman? What was mad about the proposal? Were you aware of his proposal? Were you aware of the details of his proposal to know what was mad about it? Or are you saying that just off of trusting the good and faithful government? Because I don't understand why you would say that's a mad proposal. His proposal had to do with the fact that, his proposal, let me tell you what his proposal was. And this is the problem I'm seeing. Like, they didn't even address his proposal. It's not even like they said it was a mad proposal. It's not even like they tried it and said it failed. He said the Ministry of Trade has registered all of these scrap iron dealers. They are registered. The Ministry of Trade knows the dealers that deal in copper, because all of the dealers don't deal in copper. The ridiculous thing about this whole business is that the material that is stolen is being legally exported. It's not like they're smuggling it out, hidden in some container where customs doesn't know. It's packed into a container that you could open and look inside and see filled with rolls of copper. The Ministry of Trade has all the copper dealers registered. And according to the president of the association, there aren't that many. I believe he said something like a little over 10, if I recall correctly. And he was saying, if you increase the penalty, you shut down the copper, you increase the penalty, and then you allow for spot searches in those areas with increased penalties, it would cripple it. You see, you cannot, and this is the part that I was annoyed by. Let me see if it's in this article or if it was in another one. The Minister of National Security, someone who is not afraid to say many words, the Minister of National Security was talking about the fact that there are so many light poles and so many arrests being made and so many different tea and tech stations and so many different WASA stations. We just do not have the policeman power to go about and protect all of the light poles. He's speaking like we are all idiots. He's speaking like we are all idiots because these guys don't steal this cable to put it in their pocket or to carry it home and lie down on it. They steal it to sell it to few places. To few places. So you don't need to go and police every light pole. You just need to police the 10 copper dealers. And listen, these copper dealers are businessmen. These businessmen, I can bet you, aren't the ones climbing the poles. They don't want to risk it. Listen, if you catch 3 copper dealers selling or buying stolen copper and slap them with a couple $1 million charges and jail time, I can bet you they start refusing the stolen copper. That was the man's proposal. That was the man's proposal. You stop it at the source there. You can't go and stop all the million hustlers climbing the poles. That's not possible. And it seems like that's all the police were doing for the most part, running down the hustlers. Well, barely running down the hustlers climbing the poles. You can't really do that, but you can stop the few copper dealers. And to not even give us give the man the dignity of saying why his proposal wouldn't work. Dog, I want to tell you, it have plenty men buying copper with no license. Here's the thing, Stefan D116. That is true. Many men do buy copper without a license, but you cannot export it without a license. So all those small unlicensed buyers, have to conglomerate it to a licensed buyer, to a licensed trader, in order to get it exported. They do not export it on the black market. You cannot export copper on the black, well, you could, but that's not a business in Trinidad. Still buying at less. But here's what I'm saying, Stefan D. I don't even care about the unregistered ones. Leave them. You would catch them in time. You don't need to go at them. All the copper needs to pass through registered dealers. That's just the fact of the matter. All the copper passes through registered dealers. All the copper goes into containers. All the copper passes through our ports. All. Every last strand. That's how it works. So you don't need to go and run down unregistered dealers in the oily backyard, burning copper and suffocating themselves. You don't need to do that. That's not the direction you need to go. Nathan Rosen says, we don't like going after the big fish. We're too busy chasing the 100 crab climbing the pole. It could seem so. Like, listen, to me, this could make me question if the reason they didn't do it that way is because they didn't actually want to catch the big guys who were doing this. It's like they may have wanted it to stop, but they don't really want to jail these men. So let's find another way to get it to stop. Trace, who are the owners of the copper deals, their families, friends, associate women. Stephanie says, I mean, even if they ban people buying for less, so they will turn big profit in 6 months. Well, that's the next thing. Who is to say that they would even be able to stop it after the 6 months passes? Who is to say? I guess we'd find out. It just does not make sense to me. It really doesn't make sense. And the fact is, like, I've had an adventurous time in my life. I have been around the scrap iron industry closely. I've been around it. Nearly every... I'm a jack of all trades. So there's farming, there's teaching, there's construction, there's music, and now I'm a scrap iron guy too. But yes, I've been around some scrap iron dealing. And the fact is that there are a lot of reforming criminals in and around the scrap iron business. There are many reforming criminals in and around the scrap iron business. That's widely known. Plenty of the guys there, you talk to them and I was on the inside for 3 years, you know. I was on the inside for 3 years, but you know, right now I just trying to stay on the good part for my baby girl and thing now, boy. I trying just not to go back on the inside now. You understand what I say now? So I trying to, you know, make a little hustle here. So, you know how they them do really get, you know what now? So I come for a little quick hustle here, and this how I put in the bread on the table now, G. Yeah. And I'm telling you, I have spoken to some. Listen, if you go and speak to some of these guys and you have an empathetic heart, they will break your heart with some of these stories, eh? They will break your heart with some of these stories. And the reality is, yes, there may be some criminals who are still criminals. They aren't former criminals. They aren't reformed. They're still criminals. Because in the scrap iron industry, like some of the yards steal from some of the yards. They're stealing from each other. If one scrap iron man half pack his van and leave it slipping, a man will pass and scrape down all your stock on your van and go with it. Yes, we know. There are still some criminals there, but there are some who are not. And there may be some teetering on the edge. There are some people who might never do crime. There are some people who would never do crime. No matter what, they will never do crime. But there are some people who, if there's a viable path for me to not do crime, fine. I'll go and work. I don't mind working. But then there are some people, if there's no viable path, they're like, well, this is what I know. That's what I'm going back to do. That is a reality. You could say that it's not a good thing. You could say that the right moral thing to do is, regardless of your circumstance, you should still hold to that moral correctness and still do no crime. Okay, I agree. But the reality is some people aren't like that. You tried to start, bro, where's my battery? Yes, you're a scrap iron man. You know this. And they're filling the battery with all kind of heavier stuff because the battery is paid with by weight. There are some guys coming with a van load, and in the van load have some massive big stone just to, you know, add a little extra weight inside of there. Yeah, they're full of tricks. There are some real tricks out there. Thank you, Leon Allen. You try to, yeah. So that's a reality. And some of these guys, if you ban them for 6 months, what is going to happen? Like, really, what do you think is going to happen? Some of them are going to revert to some more violent crime. It's just the reality. That's just the reality we are facing. Some of those guys who will, they were doing criminality among each other, stealing each other's scrap iron, but in a sense, they were all working. So, it's like a collectivist scrap iron business. So we steal from each other, and we know we steal from each other, and they have an understanding because they don't press charges. And as bad as that might be, I much rather these guys stealing and trying to trick and outsmart each other and rob each other every now and again than come out here in the general populace and do the same thing. And that's exactly what they will do. Because by and large, you tell somebody starve or find a way to eat, and they're going to find a way to eat. Let them go by the politicians who went to the chambers and passed that bogus law. Yo, the topic is scrap iron and the ban for 6 months that they're putting in place. The thing is with many of the politicians, they're not the ones that would face the brunt of this. Even if there's some real negative fallout in crime, many of the politicians aren't the ones who are going to feel the brunt of crime. Most politicians are living in secure areas with guards surrounding them. You can't get to a politician that easily. No. That's not how that works. You don't just get to a politician. So they're fine. They're fine. I find that I just don't understand how you could easily justify something like that. But the PNM has internal elections soon. Let's see if that would have anything to do with how the PNM's internal election is running. I believe it's on December 4th. So if you're a PNMite, PNM till you're dead, PNM to the bone, whatever, Balize plant in your front yard with your PNM card, well, you'll vote for a leader on December 4th. I wonder if there's going to be a change. I wonder. Because I remember Dr. Keith Rowley was speaking about this being his last term as Prime Minister. So, we'll see. Rowley said he's not leaving, of course. Nonsense may increase crimes such as robbery since these men can't trade scrap iron. Very likely. That's the way I see it. That's the way I see it. All right. Any further comments or questions, folks? Because that's about all I have for now. We're having a shorter night tonight. We aren't going all that long. So any further comments or questions before we dive out? Or is that all for now? Good night, Minister. I am well. I am well. How are you doing? Nathan, sir, have you spoken about the pattern of murders recently? Topic for another night. We spoke about that just last night, khakis and khakis. We spoke about that just last night and the pattern in the hit-style killings and how they were checking men ID card to make sure what they were doing when we going Africa. Who we? Who we, sir? What are you talking about? Did we plan a trip to Africa? Yes, if it banned them from bigger heads, we'll still survive for that 6 months, but what will happen to us? Pain. What about the power outage tonight? That's what we started speaking about. The power outage was reportedly caused by a landslide in Roselac that broke or bent a high-tension tower, a high-tension wire tower, and caused some kind of faulty breakage of the Gandhi Union line, which just so happens to be the same line that got a tree, I believe, fell on it back in February with the blackout. So that Gandhi Union line, as we spoke about earlier, it seems to be having a bit bad luck. It needs to find whoever is giving 6 dandy luck, go and touch up the Gandhi station. Current now come back to I now catching up. Oh, well, I was asking earlier who was missing current. So the folks, I guess the folks who were in the live were the folks that were lucky enough to have the current already. If it's anything, you can run over to YouTube and subscribe to Nathan Springer over there. The lives are all over there, all 100, well, not all, most 120 of the lives, and catch up on anything you missed if you are so interested. Head over there and subscribe. Hey, the meeting up. Well, I agree with that. I am still on to the meetup. I have no problem with that. The meetup is scheduled for the 28th of August for all of you interested in having a meetup and meeting up with me and us and some of us in the live. We are meeting up on the 28th of August. The Discord server where you can head over and give your ideas and talk about it is linked in my bio over here on TikTok. You can head over to my bio, click the link. There's a Discord link right there. You can click it and you will join the server and you can talk about what you want to talk about. I can't get a ticket. You see, Ronnie? You see, and you were vexed with Farley for wanting more trips. That is what Farley was talking about. Farley was saying that y'all should be able to get a ticket when y'all want. That's why Mr. Farley wants more trips between Trinidad and Tobago. You're not listening. You see, that's why you have to back your chief secretary. But you're not getting a plane ticket or you're not getting a boat ticket, because as far as I know, boat tickets are nearly always available. Hardly ever you don't get boat tickets. Or you're just one of those stush ones, you're not touching no Bocas. You're not going over any Bocas waters. But yes, the meetup is on the 28th of August. You can head over to that server on Discord. The link is there in my bio if you want to meet up. The current idea for location, I believe, is you pick. It's subject to change. If you'd like to propose an idea, jump over to the server and propose the idea where we might go. And we'll go meet up, talk, chill, have a good time. Jeez. No tickets till the 3rd. Pain. Wow. That's insane. That's insane. No tickets. So, like, if somebody get in an emergency and they like have to come to Trinidad for something, like, what goes on? Just hard luck. No ticket till the like no way for you to leave the island of Tobago to come to Trinidad. Like, if you making that decision now, there's no way. Jeez, that's kind of scary. Like, I mean, there are some essential services for Tobagonians over here in Trinidad. Somebody needs to organize a little private business between Scarborough and Tuku, a quick short drop. Standby, but that's not a short thing. Well, it is not, but most times it seems like people get through on standby. But if there are no tickets available till the 3rd, then standby itself might be a really long standby. We'll send a jet ski for you. Like Duke, swim over like Duke, put on your wetsuit, swim for 100 meters, and then let the jet ski carry you. Jeez. 500 to 600 one way. Well, you see now, that's more like the actual price, probably. That's the price point of these flights. So wait, people in the chat can suggest a venue up to now. Not in the chat. Not in the chat. If you want to suggest a venue, you have to go over to the Discord server. And they could suggest one, and the people over there in the Discord server could say, like, no. So there's that. I took one already. Loved it. Of course. Of course you did, Rudy. All right, folks. Before I start to sleep away over here in the live, let me dive out. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. And I will see you guys tomorrow for the next Mindful Live, starting around 9 to 9:15 p.m. Tonight we had a later start due to other unforeseen circumstances, but that's the usual time. Well, no, Rooney. You rest. Rooney, you rest. Go have a rest. Yes, Stefan D. I'm gone. I'm going. Yes, I do go after a while. Listen, all right, on that note, good night, folks.